Imagine the scene. A perfect summer afternoon, blue skies, the smell of barbecue smoke thick in the air, but something's wrong. Terribly wrong. Instead of happy chatter, there's coughing. Violent, hacking coughs that echo across the lawn. Faces aren't flushed with sunshine. They're turning blotchy red, sweating profusely despite the pleasant weather. People are fanning their mouths frantically, gulping down water, beer, anything they can grab, their eyes wide with panic and pain. And in the center of it all stands my neighbor Brenda, the hostess of this rapidly devolving disaster, clutching her throat, tears streaming down her face, letting out strangled gasps that sound less human and more like a distressed goose. It looks like chaos. It is chaos. And the cause? The platter of seemingly innocent burgers sizzling away on my barbecue grill, which she had commandeered for her party. Burgers that were about to teach her a lesson she'd never forget. How did we get here? How did a dispute over a backyard appliance escalate into, well, culinary chemical warfare? It started, as these things often do, quite simply, and it involved my neighbor thinking my property was hers for the taking. My name is Mark. I'm a graphic designer, spending most of my days glued to a screen in my home office, wrestling with demanding clients and impossible deadlines. Because of that intense screen time and mental juggling, my quiet suburban home isn't just where I live. It's my decompression chamber, my sanctuary. I'm a single guy, living alone, and I deeply value peace, quiet, and my own personal space, especially my backyard. It's not huge, maybe a little patch of grass, a comfortable chair, and the crown jewel, my grill. Now, this wasn't some rusty kettle grill dragged out once a year. This was my baby, a gleaming stainless steel, multi-burner behemoth of a propane grill. I'd researched for months, saved diligently, and finally invested in this beauty. It had side burners I barely used, infrared searing zones, the works. For me, grilling wasn't just about cooking, it was a ritual. The sizzle of steak, the smoky aroma, standing on my patio with a cold beer after a long week. That was my happy place. It represented independence, a reward for hard work, a little slice of backyard paradise carved out just for me. I kept it meticulously clean, covered it religiously after every use. It was more than metal and propane. It was a symbol of my peaceful, ordered life. A life I guarded, perhaps a little fiercely. I figured basic neighborly respect meant understanding that yours and mine were distinct concepts, especially when it came to expensive equipment sitting firmly on my side of the property line. Apparently, my neighbor Brenda operated under a different set of rules entirely. Brenda lived next door, separated by one of those low, almost symbolic wooden fences common in our neighborhood. My interactions with her had been minimal, the standard nods, the tight-lipped smiles during trash day ballet. But even from those brief encounters, I got a vibe, an intensity. She always seemed to be in motion, barking into her phone while power walking around her yard, often clad in designer athletic, where that looked far too pristine for actual exertion. Her hair was that specific shade of blonde, cut into a sharp, asymmetrical bob that seemed perpetually ready to demand managerial intervention. Large sunglasses were a near-constant accessory, sometimes pushed atop her head indoors, acting less as eye protection and more as a status symbol or a barrier. Her default expression held a hint of judgment, as if the world consistently failed to live up to her expectations. And her lawn was unnervingly perfect, almost aggressively green, tended with a ferocity that hinted at an underlying need for control. The first real crack in the neighborly facade appeared on a glorious Saturday afternoon. The sun was out. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves, textbook grilling weather. I'd been mentally marinating chicken breasts all morning, eager to try a new recipe. Finishing up my last work email, I grabbed my favorite tongs, whistling a tune, and headed for the patio door, ready for my weekend ritual. I slid the door open and stopped cold. The sight that greeted me was so unexpected, so jarring, that my brain took a second to process it. There stood Brenda, beside my grill, my gleaming, meticulously cared-for grill, The cover was tossed carelessly onto my patio chair. Flames licked up from the burners, and sizzling merrily on the grates were sausages. Fat, greasy sausages that were definitely not mine. She was there, spatula in hand, presumably her own at least, calmly cooking her lunch on my equipment as if it were the most natural thing in the world. No knock, no call, no text, just appropriation. I cleared my throat, trying to keep the disbelief out of my voice. Brenda. She glanced over, not with surprise or apology, but with a flicker of impatience, like I was the one intruding. Those oversized sunglasses shielded her eyes, making her expression hard to read, but the slight purse of her lips spoke volumes. "Oh, Mock. Hi," she said breezily, waving the greasy spatula in my general direction. "Just popping over to use your grill. Mine decided to kick the bucket this morning, typical. And Gary," she rolled her eyes dramatically, referring to her husband, "is absolutely hopeless with anything mechanical." She finished with a short, sharp laugh that held zero humor. I stared at the sausages, then back at her. "Right," I began, choosing my words carefully. "Well, Brenda, usually, it's customary to ask before you borrow someone's things, especially something substantial, like a grill." I gestured towards the stainless steel beast currently serving her lunch needs. She waved a dismissive hand, narrowly avoiding flicking grease onto my clean patio stones. "Oh, don't be so uptight, Mark. It's just a barbecue. It's not like it's bolted down. Besides," she added, her tone implying I was the unreasonable one, "I saw you weren't using it. Waste not, want not, right? Waste not. I used it constantly. And uptight. For expecting basic courtesy regarding my own property?" I felt a familiar heat creeping up my neck, the kind that signals rising anger. "Brenda," I said, my voice firmer now, "I get that yours is broken, and that's inconvenient. But this is brand new. I take really good care of it, and I need you to ask for permission before using it. Period." She let out an exaggerated sigh, a theatrical display of long-suffering patience. "Fine, Mark. Goodness. If you're going to be that precious about it." Message received. But her tone, the slight smirk playing on her lips, told me the message hadn't landed at all. It had bounced right off her impenetrable shield of entitlement. She expertly flipped her sausages one last time, scooped them onto a plate she'd brought over, and turned to leave. No thank you. No offer to clean up. She simply walked back towards her immaculate lawn, leaving my grill lid open, the burner still lit, and a lovely pattern of sausage grease splattered across the previously pristine stainless steel surface. I stood there for a solid minute, just breathing, listening to the hiss of the burners she hadn't bothered to turn off. The audacity was stunning. It wasn't just the borrowing. It was the complete lack of respect, the assumption that my space and my things were extensions of her own domain. I shut off the propane, grabbed my cleaning supplies, and started scrubbing away the greasy remnants of her entitlement. My jaw clenched. This had better be a one-time incident, I told myself grimly. Surely, now that I'd spoken up, she wouldn't dare do it again. I couldn't have been more wrong. Brenda wasn't just testing the waters. She was preparing to launch a full-scale invasion. My naive hope that Brenda had learned her lesson lasted exactly 4 days. I came home after picking up some groceries, arms full, and immediately noticed something amiss on the patio. The cover was draped haphazardly over my grill, not secured the way I always left it. My stomach tightened with a sense of dread. I put the groceries down in the kitchen and went straight outside. Lifting the cover confirmed my fears, but the reality was worse than I expected. My grill wasn't just dirty. It wasn't just used. Hooked up to the burners, via a hose snaking sneakily across the lawn from her patio, was her empty, ancient-looking propane tank. And sitting forlornly next to my grill, disconnected and noticeably lighter, was my nearly full tank. She hadn't just used the grill again. She'd siphoned off my fuel supply. She'd performed a clandestine propane tank transplant operation right there on my patio. The sheer, calculated nerve of it left me speechless for a moment. She hadn't even tried to be subtle. It was a blatant act of resource acquisition. I disconnected her tank, wrestled my own back into place, feeling its diminished weight with growing fury. I carried her empty tank back across the lawn and deposited it on her side of the fence with a satisfying, deliberate thunk. My first instinct was to storm over there and unleash the torrent of frustration building inside me. But picturing her dismissive shrug, her inevitable excuses, her talent for twisting situations to make me seem like the bad guy, it just felt exhausting. Confrontation clearly wasn't her language. Maybe something more direct, something documented, was needed. So, I went inside and typed up a note. No pleasantries this time. Just clear, concise instruction. Brenda, do not use my grill. Do not touch my propane tank. This is private property. Any further use without my explicit, prior permission will be considered trespassing. Mark. I printed it, folded it sharply, marched back outside, and tucked it firmly under the handle of her back door where she absolutely could not miss it. For about a week and a half, blessed silence reigned. My grill remained untouched under its cover. My propane level stayed constant. I started to cautiously unclench. Maybe the written warning, the bluntness, the explicit mention of trespassing, had finally penetrated her thick skull. Maybe the threat of actual consequences had done what polite requests could not. Oh, the optimism of the perpetually inconvenienced. Then came Saturday. Not the upcoming Saturday, but the one right after my brief period of hopeful peace. It was mid-afternoon. I was deep in the zone, working on a critical project. Noise-canceling headphones clamped firmly over my ears, the outside world tuned out. Hours might have passed. Eventually, needing caffeine and a leg stretch, I pulled off the headphones and headed towards the kitchen. As I passed the window overlooking the backyard, a scene unfolded that made my blood run cold, then immediately boil. My grill cover was off. Flames were going, and gathered around my grill, on my patio furniture, which seemed to have mysteriously migrated a few feet, was Brenda. And she wasn't alone. She was holding court, spatula waving, presiding over a cheerful gathering of 3 other women I vaguely recognized as her neighborhood clique. They were laughing, sipping wine from glasses that definitely weren't mine, while Brenda flipped burgers and hot dogs on my grill like she was the goddamn Queen of Sheba hosting a royal garden party. In my backyard, without asking, after being explicitly told not to. After the note, after the propane theft, something inside me snapped. The carefully constructed dam of polite restraint and conflict avoidance burst. I didn't walk. I stalked out the back door, slamming it open harder than intended. Brenda, what in the actual hell do you think you're doing? My voice wasn't just loud. It was practically a roar. Years of suppressed frustration boiled over. Heads snapped around. The cheerful chatter died instantly. Brenda's friends froze, their wine glasses hovering, expressions shifting from amusement to startled alarm. Brenda herself jumped, whirling around, her face a mask of indignation quickly replacing momentary shock. Mark, my goodness, keep your voice down, she hissed, casting an embarrassed glance at her friends before fixing me with a glare. We're just having a little impromptu get-together. Relax. Your grill is just so much nicer. It seemed silly not to utilize it for a few burgers. She actually used the word utilize. As if my grill was a public utility, she was graciously imploring. Utilize it. I repeated, the words dripping with sarcasm and disbelief. Brenda, are you kidding me? I told you explicitly not to touch it. I left you a note. And now you've dragged my furniture around and are hosting a party back here. One of her friends, a woman whose expression perpetually suggested she'd just smelled sour milk, piped up with syrupy condescension. Brenda mentioned you were usually so accommodating, Mark. We assumed you wouldn't mind sharing the neighborhood spirit. Sharing the spirit doesn't mean commandeering my entire patio. I shot back, keeping my furious gaze locked on Brenda. This isn't community property. It's my house. I want you, your friends, and my grill cleared off my patio. Now, there was a collective intake of breath. Brenda's face flushed a dangerous shade of crimson. You wouldn't actually kick us out? How incredibly rude. Rude. I laughed, a harsh, humorless sound. You think I'm being rude? After you've repeatedly ignored everything I've said, stolen my propane, and invaded my property? Get out. I pointed towards her yard, my hand shaking slightly with adrenaline. Her friends, clearly uncomfortable being caught in the crossfire and realizing Brenda might have omitted certain details about her neighborly arrangement, began gathering their purses and wine glasses with nervous haste. Murmurs of maybe we should go, and getting late anyway, filled the air. They scurried back towards Brenda's perfect lawn, casting uneasy glances back at the scene. Brenda was left standing alone, radiating fury and humiliation, next to my grill piled high with her half-cooked food. You, she spat, her voice trembling with rage, are the most petty, selfish, miserable man I have ever had the displeasure of knowing. She grabbed the platter of remaining raw meat, nearly dropping it in her anger, and stormed back to her own house, slamming her door so hard I thought the glass might rattle out. She left the grill burning, naturally, and splattered with grease. Again, I stood there in the sudden silence, heart pounding, the smell of cheap burgers mocking me. Taking deep breaths, I shut everything down, as I began the infuriatingly familiar task of cleaning up Brenda's mess. A cold, hard certainty settled over me. Politeness had failed. Directness had failed. Even righteous fury had only resulted in insults and a slammed door. Brenda didn't respond to reason or boundaries. She only understood consequences. And I was starting to think I needed to deliver a consequence she couldn't ignore, dismiss, or twist. The idea of the security camera solidified from a maybe into a definitely. And beyond that, other, spicier ideas began to simmer. The security camera arrived the next day. Installing it felt empowering, like taking back a sliver of control. I positioned it discreetly under the eaves, angled perfectly to capture my entire patio, with the grill taking center stage. I linked it to my phone, tested the feed, crystal clear. Now, any further incursions would be documented. It wasn't just about proving Brenda wrong anymore. It was about gathering evidence. Evidence of her relentless entitlement. Over the next 2 weeks, the camera became my silent witness. It caught her sneaking over late one evening to borrow my comfortable patio chair because she was having coffee outside and hers were less supportive. It caught Gary, looking deeply uncomfortable, quickly measuring the propane level in my tank one afternoon while Brenda watched from her window, presumably dispatching him on reconnaissance. It even caught her letting her little yappy dog do its business near my rose bushes, making no move to clean it up. Each incident, meticulously saved as a video file, added fuel to my simmering resentment. Then came the whispers, escalating into Brenda's typically loud phone calls conducted in her backyard for all to hear. The annual neighborhood block party, hosted, of course, by Brenda and Gary. Potluck, she boomed into her phone one Tuesday evening. But don't worry about the main course. We'll be grilling up plenty of burgers and dogs for everyone on the big grill. The big grill. My stomach clenched. Not her defunct piece of junk rusting on her patio. She meant my grill. The nerve was astronomical. After everything. After the confrontations, the note, the documented trespassing. She was planning to appropriate my grill for the entire neighborhood? This wasn't just entitlement. This was pathological. This time, I wouldn't wait for the invasion. I needed to draw a line in the sand so clear, so definitive, that even she couldn't pretend to misunderstand it. That evening, I saw her outside, directing Gary in the placement of some gaudy inflatable decoration. I took a steadying breath and walked to the fence line. Brenda, I called out, keeping my voice calm, measured, devoid of the anger churning inside me. She turned, sunglasses perched on her head, her expression instantly wary. Mock, what is it? I hear you're hosting the block party this year. I began. A smug smile touched her lips. That's right. Someone has to foster community spirit around here. You're welcome to come. Bring a dessert this time, maybe? The invitation felt like rubbing salt on the wound. We'll see, I replied evenly. But Brenda, listen very carefully. Regarding the party, my grill, I pointed directly at it, sitting peacefully under its cover on my patio, is absolutely, positively, 100% off limits. You are not to touch it. You are not to move it. You are not to use it for your party. Understood? Her face tightened, the smugness vanishing. Oh, for goodness sake, Mark. Are you still on about that stupid grill? It's a neighborhood event. It's about sharing. It's about respecting property. I countered, my voice dropping slightly but gaining intensity. My property, which you have repeatedly failed to do. So, let me be crystal clear, do not use my grill. If I see it leave my patio, I will consider it theft. Are we clear on that? She stared at me. Her eyes narrowed slits behind the unnecessary sunglasses. The silence stretched. Finally, she forced a saccharine smile that didn't reach her eyes. Fine, Mark. Loud and clear. Wouldn't dream of laying a finger on your precious little toy. She sneered, the sarcasm thick enough to cut with a knife. She spun on her heel and marched back into her house. I watched her go, feeling no reassurance whatsoever. That sarcastic agreement was meaningless. Her track record, combined with the camera footage I already had, told me she'd do exactly what she wanted the moment she thought she could get away with it. And that's when the simmering idea boiled over into a concrete plan. A plan involving identical-looking burger patties, a stealthy swap, and a heat level that would make the surface of the sun feel like a cool breeze. If she was determined to use my grill against my explicit command, she would reap what she sowed. Or rather, she and her guests would eat what she sowed. The final straw wasn't just laid. Brenda was about to set it ablaze herself. The day of the block party dawned bright and hot. The air buzzed with anticipation, and Brenda's loud instructions to Gary as they set up tables and chairs in their yard. I made a point of doing some yard work early, ensuring Brenda saw me, saw the grill firmly on my patio, covered and untouched. Then, around noon, executing step one of my plan, I conspicuously loaded a gym bag into my car, waved vaguely in the direction of Brenda's bustling yard, and drove off. I didn't go far. Just around the corner, parked out of sight, where I could walk back unnoticed through a neighbor's yard and slip into my house via the back gate, hidden by the thick hedge. I positioned myself in my home office window, phone open to the live security feed. My heart thumped a steady rhythm of nervous anticipation against my ribs. It was a waiting game. Less than 15 minutes after my stage departure, the camera feed delivered the proof I knew was coming. Brenda, glancing around conspiratorially, gave Gary a sharp nod towards my patio. Gary, looking like a man resigned to his fate, trudged over, yanked the cover off my grill, unlocked the wheels — I deliberately left them unlocked as bait — and began the awkward process of maneuvering the heavy stainless steel beast across the lawn divider and into the prime central location in Brenda's party setup. It was happening, exactly as predicted. The blatant, premeditated violation. A few moments later, Brenda emerged triumphantly from her kitchen, carrying a large, foil catering tray piled high with plump, perfectly round, raw hamburger patties. She placed it carefully on the grill's side shelf, surveyed the scene with the satisfaction of a conquering general, and bustled back inside. Showtime. In my kitchen, an identical foil tray sat waiting. It looked the same, held roughly the same number of patties, but mine held a secret ingredient. Several, actually. The night before, gloves on, I had carefully kneaded a terrifyingly potent concoction into high-quality ground beef, finely minced ghost peppers, a generous pinch of pure Carolina Reaper powder sourced from a specialty online store, handled with extreme care, the warning label screamed, and just enough cayenne and smoked paprika to create a reddish hue that mimicked a seasoned burger, masking the sheer evil within. They looked innocent. appetizing even. Adrenaline surged through me. This was it. No turning back. Checking the view from the window. Brenda was inside. Gary was fiddling with the music system. I took a deep breath, grabbed my tray of edible incendiary devices, and slipped out the back door. Staying low, using the hedge as cover, I moved swiftly across the grass, dividing our properties. Reaching the grill felt like crossing enemy lines. With trembling fingers, I lifted Brenda's tray of harmless burgers. Quick as lightning, I put my tray of doom in its exact place. Clutching Brenda's original tray, I reversed my steps, darting back behind the hedge and into the safety of my own house. My heart was hammering. I checked the time. The entire swap took maybe 20 seconds. I peered out the window. The coast was clear. The trap was set. Minutes later, Brenda reappeared, blissfully unaware. She approached the grill, beamed at the tray of patties, my patties, picked up her spatula, and with a flourish, began laying the rounds of fiery vengeance onto the hot grates of my grill. The sizzle started, releasing a plume of smoke that smelled deceptively normal. Guests began to arrive in earnest. The music got louder. Cheerful greetings and laughter filled the air. Brenda played the gracious hostess, directing people to the drinks table, accepting compliments on her setup, centered, of course, around my gleaming grill. I watched from my window, a silent, unseen observer, feeling a strange mix of guilt, anxiety, and righteous anticipation. Soon, the first batch of burgers was cooked through. Brenda, using my grill tools that she must have also borrowed, plated them onto buns, arranged them beautifully on the main food table next to the salads and chips. "Burgers are hot and ready," she announced, her voice ringing with false generosity. "Come and get him." A line formed quickly. Neighbors I knew, faces I recognized, eagerly took the proffered plates. I held my breath, watching closely. The first few bites seemed normal. People chatted, chewed, complimented Brenda. My stomach twisted. Had I miscalculated? Was the heat not potent enough? Then I saw it. A slight widening of the eyes from Mr. Henderson down the street. He took another bite, chewed more slowly, a puzzled expression forming. He discreetly reached for his water bottle. Across the lawn, Mrs. Gable, known for her delicate palate, suddenly stopped mid-sentence, her hand fluttering to her mouth. She took a hasty, large sip of her lemonade. Then came the first real casualty. A younger guy, probably mid-20s, took a huge, enthusiastic bite. His chewing stopped abruptly. His eyes bulged. A strangled cough escaped him. Then another, louder this time. His face started turning red, beads of sweat popping out on his forehead. He dropped the burger back onto his plate as if it had bitten him, gasping. "Whoa, what is that?" He started fanning his mouth desperately. Suddenly, it was like a chain reaction. "Mine's really spicy too," someone exclaimed nearby. "Yeah, seriously hot," another voice chimed in. A woman let out a small shriek. "Brenda, did you accidentally use hot sauce instead of ketchup?" Brenda, busy flipping the next batch, looked up, annoyed at the interruption. "Spicy. Don't be ridiculous. They're just regular beef burgers. Gary, you didn't grab the spicy seasoning again, did you?" Gary, already looking stressed, just shook his head emphatically, mouthing no. "Brenda, this isn't just spicy," coughed Mr. Henderson, tears now welling in his eyes. This is painful." Brenda, looking deeply offended that her culinary skills were being questioned, finally decided to investigate. "Oh, honestly, you're all exaggerating," she scoffed. She grabbed a freshly cooked burger, slapped it on a bun, and took a large, defiant bite. She chewed vigorously for a few seconds, a smug perfectly fine expression starting to form. And then it hit her. The smugness evaporated. Her eyes widened in disbelief, then horror. She swallowed convulsively. Her face began to turn an alarming shade of scarlet. She gasped, a hand flying to her chest. Oh my!" she choked out. Then came the strangled sputtering, the frantic fanning, the desperate, wide-eyed search for liquid. Water. Need water, she croaked, stumbling towards the drink cooler, knocking over a bowl of chips in her haste. She grabbed a bottle, twisted the cap off with shaking hands, and practically inhaled the contents, water dribbling down her chin and onto her pristine white top. It offered no relief. She started pacing, whimpering slightly, tears streaming down her face, looking utterly panicked. The party ground to a halt. All eyes were on Brenda's dramatic, watery meltdown. The cheerful music suddenly sounded jarringly out of place. This was my moment. Smoothing my shirt, arranging my face into an expression of mild concern, I strolled out my back door, across my lawn, and towards the epicenter of the chaos. I arrived just as Brenda was making another desperate grab for a water bottle. "Hey now," I said, my voice calm and casual, cutting through the awkward silence. "Everything all right over here, Brenda? Sounds like quite the party." I let my gaze drift over the abandoned plates, the wide-eyed guests, Brenda's tear-streaked, crimson face. Her head snapped up, her water-filled eyes locked onto mine. Recognition dawned, instantly followed by pure, unadulterated fury. She pointed a trembling, accusing finger straight at me. "You," she shrieked, her voice raspy and choked. You did this. I know it was you. You poisoned my burgers." I raised my eyebrows, feigning deep offense. "Poisoned? Brenda, that's a serious accusation. I just drove up, heard the commotion. What on earth happened? Did the meat go bad?" I looked around at the guests, projecting innocence. "Don't you dare play innocent, Mark," she raged, still gasping between words. These burgers, they're like lava. You swapped them. While I was inside, you snuck over and swapped my perfectly good burgers for these fireballs." The remaining guests exchanged confused, uncomfortable glances. They looked from Brenda's hysterical state to my calm demeanor. I let the silence hang for a beat, then dropped the facade. My expression hardened. My voice became cold, deliberate. "Swap them, Brenda? Why would I possibly do something like that?" I paused, letting the implication sink in. "Unless," I continued, my voice rising slightly so everyone could hear clearly, "perhaps it had something to do with our conversation? The one where I explicitly, firmly told you not to use my grill for your party? The one where you sarcastically promised you wouldn't touch my precious little toy?" Brenda's jaw dropped. The color drained from her already flushed face, leaving it a mottled, sickly white. She started to stammer. "I needed." "You needed." I cut her off sharply. "Or you just felt entitled, like you felt entitled to use my grill multiple times before without asking? Like you felt entitled to help yourself to my propane? Like you felt entitled to take my patio furniture? Like you felt entitled to let your dog use my lawn as a toilet?" Each question landed like a blow. Brenda flinched. "And just in case your memory is failing you, Brenda," I added, gesturing towards my house, "I have security footage, crystal clear footage, of Gary wheeling my grill over here this morning, right after I supposedly left. Footage of you putting your burgers next to it. Footage of your previous visits to my patio chair. Footage of the propane inspection. Shall I go get my laptop, and we can have a little viewing party for the neighborhood?" A collective gasp rippled through the small, stunned crowd. People weren't just looking at Brenda with confusion anymore. It was dawning comprehension, disapproval, even disgust. Mr. Henderson shook his head slowly. Mrs. Gable took a physical step back from Brenda. Gary looked like he wanted the ground to open up and swallow him whole. He wouldn't meet anyone's eyes. Brenda stared at me, utterly defeated, exposed, and probably still suffering from the fiery effects of her own commandeered burger. You wouldn't," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Try me," I said softly, holding her gaze. "So yes, Brenda, the burgers are spicy, infernally spicy. Maybe next time you'll think twice before crossing a boundary. Consider it a very potent, very memorable lesson in respecting other people's property." The silence that followed was absolute. broken only by the distant sound of traffic and the faint crackle of the coals in my grill. Brenda just stood there, stripped of her bluster, radiating humiliation. Then, one by one, the guests began to melt away. Awkward murmurs of "got to go." "Remembered I have a thing." "Wow, look at the time," filled the air. They avoided looking directly at Brenda, some offering me small, sympathetic nods as they made their escape. It was a mass exodus fueled by second-hand embarrassment and, likely, scorched taste buds. Within 5 minutes, Brenda's big block party was over. It was just her, Gary, and me, standing amidst the debris, half-eaten plates of fireburgers, spilled drinks, deflated party spirit. Brenda gave me one final look, filled with a hatred so pure it was almost impressive, then turned wordlessly and fled into her house. Gary muttered a barely intelligible sorry mark before scurrying after her. The door slammed shut, leaving me alone with my reclaimed grill. The quiet that descended felt profound. Victorious, I disconnected the propane, carefully wheeled my grill back to its rightful place on my patio, and locked the wheels firmly this time. The cleanup took a while, scrubbing away the grease and the lingering scent of betrayal and peppers, but I did it with a deep sense of satisfaction. Later that evening, under the cover of darkness, Gary crept out and placed my original, thankfully untouched, tray of burger patties near the fence before retreating quickly. A silent offering, perhaps? I didn't care. I tossed them. The next day, I installed a heavy-duty cable lock through the wheels and frame of the grill. Overkill? Maybe. But Brenda had proven that no boundary was too sacred for her entitlement. News of the burger apocalypse, as someone later jokingly called it, spread like wildfire. Nobody confronted Brenda directly, but the social chill was palpable. Invitations dried up. Casual chats over the fence ceased. She became a neighborhood pariah, largely confined to her own perfect lawn, her sunglasses a permanent fixture. Gary just looked perpetually apologetic whenever I saw him. Do I feel guilty? Maybe a tiny bit, about the collateral damage to the unsuspecting guests. But about Brenda? Not an ounce. I tried reason. I tried politeness. I tried direct confrontation. She bulldozed through it all. Sometimes the only way to stop a bulldozer is to build a wall it can't ignore, or, in this case, serve it a burger so hot it makes respecting boundaries seem like the coolest option available. My patio is peaceful again. My grill is mine alone. And every time I fire it up now, enjoying the simple pleasure of cooking in my own space, I remember Brenda's fiery meltdown, and I have to admit, revenge is a dish best served scorching hot.